For more than a decade, Elizabeth Holmes spun the world a despicable, bloody lie. She claimed to have invented a medical miracle, a machine which with a tiny drop of blood could diagnose myriad diseases. Her deceit fooled many wealthy investors and not only made her the darling of Silicon Valley, but also a billionaire. Not anymore though. Yesterday, a California court sentenced Elizabeth Holmes to 11 years in prison for fraud.
Girl,
Ms. Holmes, what message do you hope the judge will send today?
It's the day Elizabeth Holmes has done almost everything to avoid.
Is there anything that you want to say to the investors and the patients?
But now, finally, Silicon Valley's former pin-up girl has no choice but to face her reckoning.
You plan to make any statements to the judge?
To learn her fate for defrauding investors of $144 million US. 4 nail-biting hours later, the court delivers the news. Elizabeth Holmes has been sentenced to 11 years in jail. Her crimes exposed by the courage of whistleblowers.
I'm very, very proud of the role I've had in cooperating with the government to bring justice in this case. I think I very effectively spoke the truth, and it exposed one of the most fiendish kind of plots in the history of healthcare.
Anything you want to say?
Dr. Adam Rosendorff was the star witness in the trial of Theranos founder Elizabeth Holmes, a trial which, with all its twists and turns, has captivated the world. As former lab director of Theranos, he had the inside view of a company that promised a revolution in blood testing, but was exposed to be a sham. Adam experienced the first warning signs in 2013 when he was recruited to join the healthcare startup by Holmes and Theranos COO Ramesh Sunny Balwani, Elizabeth's secret lover at the time. Did you feel quite enamoured by Elizabeth and Sunny? Did you find them to be impressive when you first joined?
I found Elizabeth to be actually very charming, but also very enigmatic. And I honestly found Sunny to be a bully. And then Elizabeth, she only wanted to know one thing from me, which is, could I be faithful? Could I keep a secret, basically?
Did that strike you as unusual to be asked if you could keep a secret?
It did. It made me wonder what was under the covers, really.
Dr. Adam Rosendorff testified that...
Sensationally, it was revealed at trial that Dr. Rosendorff went from new recruit to the critical secret source whose background briefings allowed the Wall Street Journal to crack the Theranos fraud. That claims by Holmes and Balwani they could use just a pinprick of blood to cheaply and accurately test for 200 diseases at a time, using a groundbreaking miniature mobile lab, was a lie, and that their wildly and dangerously inaccurate results had been covered up.
My therapist at the time actually thought that I was crazy, because who wouldn't, you know? Here's this sort of junior doctor saying that the greatest success story in history is a fraud.
This is what happens when you work to change things, and first they think you're crazy, then they fight you, and then all of a sudden you change the world.
I'd like to welcome Elizabeth Holmes.
The real treat, the incredible Elizabeth Holmes.
At its height, everyone wanted the success to be real. Everyone wanted Holmes, who so unashamedly modelled herself on Apple's Steve Jobs, to become Silicon Valley's first female billionaire.
There are people in this world who revolutionize our lives: Coco Chanel, Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, Walt Disney, and Elizabeth Holmes. Mark my words.
But then, like a house of cards, Theranos, valued at $9 billion, folded under the weight of the truth, disclosed by brave whistleblowers. The fall from grace was extraordinary.
You don't have the right to jeopardize patients' health because you want to be a famous figure in Silicon Valley. You want to be the new Steve Jobs. You don't have the right to experiment with people's health.
Retired biotech executive Ann Kopf-Sill sat in on the trial almost every day, unable to drag herself away from the, at times confronting and always captivating circus.
I knew a lot of people that had worked at Theranos and had followed the story for a long time. So I'm just really fascinated with the Emperor's New Clothes aspect of the story.
Back in 2006, Elizabeth Holmes took Anne out for lunch. Holmes wanted Anne to work for her as a consultant at Theranos, but the scientist wasn't convinced. With your expertise, when you heard those ambitions, did you think that this was a pipe dream, or was this a holy grail of the work you do?
I have a PhD in chemical engineering, and I was really surprised and skeptical. For me and other people in the field to believe it, we would have had to see a really interesting invention, because, yeah, all the rest of us were very far away from thinking that could be done.
Ms. Holmes, please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
But Holmes' greatest invention was the sophisticated fiction she created to hoodwink investors and patients. The woman that you saw on the stand at her own trial, how did she strike you then?
I was amazed. I mean, absolutely amazed at how poised and sort of a perfect witness she is for being under these accusations and having evidence that's so negative and damning to her, just unbelievably poised in a way that's unhuman to me. Like, most people I know couldn't or wouldn't be like that.
Was there any remorse with that? Was there any regret? Any acceptance of wrongdoing?
No.
How do you take the defence line that the collapse of Theranos really was about mistakes, not malice? It was never about hurting anybody or fleecing anybody.
Yeah. No, I do not buy that at all. I think they really systematically told lies that they knew weren't true.
From failed invention to reinvention, former insider Dr. Adam Rosendorf has seen it all over the last 9 years. Most recently, he's witnessed Elizabeth Holmes shift from a superstar scientist and powerful businesswoman to a fragile victim as she's walked into court flanked by her current partner and mother.
I never saw her as somebody who needed hand-holding. She's a shell of herself, but at the same time, she's essentially unapologetic. I mean, during the trial, she was staring at me with daggers, actually staring right through me as if she wanted to say to me, you know, how could you?
People don't even know that they have a basic human right to be able to get access to information about themselves.
Do you have any reaction to your guilty verdicts here?
The Holmes trial finished in January this year with Holmes convicted of fraud. She remained on bail awaiting sentencing, but just 8 weeks ago, 2 new bombshells. Did you think, oh no, here we go, she's avoided jail, it's a mistrial, we've got to start all this again?
I definitely thought that when I first heard it, back to the, oh, you cannot make this stuff up, right? Here's one more twist that you're like, oh my gosh, can't believe that.
Yesterday, the founder of the healthcare startup Theranos, Elizabeth Holmes, was sentenced to 11 years in jail for defrauding investors of $144 million.
Dr. Adam Rosendorf testified.
It's a sentence that brings no regrets for Dr. Adam Rosendorf, the former lab director and whistleblower whose testimony helped put Elizabeth behind bars.
I don't have empathy for Elizabeth at all. I think she's the only person who can help herself. I don't think even after she serves her sentence necessarily that there will be any great epiphany for her.
Dr. Rosendorf may have no empathy for Elizabeth Holmes, but his empathy for her 18-month-old son very nearly handed Holmes a get-out-of-jail card. After 6 days on the stand and after intense cross-examination, Adam made the bewildering decision in August to approach Elizabeth Holmes, a decision that could have led to a mistrial. Can you explain what happened? Why did you end up going to Elizabeth Holmes's house? What was the point of that?
I was feeling a lot of guilt, basically, at the prospect of her young child growing up without a mom.
What was your intention?
Merely to have her acknowledge what had happened in some way and her role in it. To express sympathy towards her for the fact that her young kid would grow up alone, basically, for a big chunk of their lives.
Did you at any point think or understand the risk of what you were doing, that this could upend everything?
No, I wasn't really thinking about that. I wasn't. I was just wanting to talk to her as a human being.
And so now that you do know, how do you view what you did?
Ill-advised.
Adam didn't get to see Holmes, but he did speak to her partner and father of her child, hotelier Billy Evans. Holmes' lawyers appealed to the judge to overturn the guilty verdict, claiming Dr. Rosendorff had told Billy he was made to embellish his testimony. The suggestion was that you had been pressured into painting things worse than they really were at Theranos at the time. That's what the defence put forward. Is there any truth to that? Were you asked by prosecutors to make it look worse?
No, the facts spoke for themselves. I didn't need to invent anything or lie up there. I didn't need to. I just needed to be truthful.
Holmes' lawyers also argued to the court Dr. Rosendorff's actions put his mental health in question, which made his entire testimony unsafe. But just a week and a half ago, the judge found there was no need for a new trial. To have your mental health cast into some sort of doubt, which then would cast your entire testimony into some sort of doubt, what was that like?
It was an affront to my dignity. It was chutzpah. It was despicable. I was shocked and disgusted.
Do you regret coming forward? Do you regret your role in this?
No, I did the right thing, period. I don't feel regret, no. As difficult as it was. And it was like opening a can with a fork. I don't feel any regret whatsoever, no.
I found him believable, that he really wanted to do the right thing for patients and to do quality work, and that he was just really torn apart.
Watching on in court, day by day, was retired biotech executive Anne Kopf-Sill, who dismisses much of what Holmes had to say in her defence as a cynical and desperate attempt to stay out of jail, including revealing she had been raped as a student, plus the allegation she was coercively controlled by her former partner and COO of Theranos, Sunny Balwani.
I think the domestic abuse and the allegation that she said she was raped at Steinfort definitely gets sympathy. But, you know, once you think that someone has committed fraud and is capable of really just straight out lying to people, it makes you suspicious of all the other angles in order to get a benefit, like a lighter sentence.
Any comment at all to the investors?
Most also view the need the Holmes camp had to reveal to the court that Elizabeth recently found her adored pet dog dead as a desperate grab for sympathy. Raising greater ire is the timing of Elizabeth's second pregnancy, first noticed just a month ago.
Any comments, Elizabeth?
In an 11th hour plea for leniency, the judge was sent photos on Friday of Holmes as a new mum to her firstborn.
She became pregnant with the first child right before she went to trial. Now she's pregnant with a second child right before sentencing. That cannot be a ploy to get lighter sentences. And I mean, it's sad about her dog, but that seems unrelated to the fraud and people paying a debt to society.
Elizabeth Holmes will be free until late April next year, when she has to surrender herself to jail. It's expected she will appeal. Even so, Holmes' conviction and now her pending incarceration has given whistleblowers like Dr. Adam Rosendorff a new sense of freedom. How much regret, if any, do you have, Adam, of ever coming across Theranos?
I think to a large extent, many people were screwed the minute they set foot in that sort of prefab smelly building in Palo Alto. You know, the day I decided to quit was the day that I climbed out of the pit of Theranos towards the sunshine.
Hello, I'm Tara Brown. Thanks for watching 60 Minutes Australia. Subscribe to our channel now for brand new stories and exclusive clips every week. And don't miss out on our extra minutes, segments and full episodes of 60 Minutes on 9now.com.au and the 9Now app.